Today I'm going to tell you about how I started my t-shirt business and what I wish I knew if I had to start over. So first and foremost, I will say it wasn't easy, but looking back at it, it could have been a whole lot easier than I thought it was. And I probably made the smallest things more difficult than it should be. And if you feel like this may be you, this is probably going to be the perfect video for you. So in the beginning, I've always had a graphic design skill. I've had this close to about 21 years now. I'm 34 years old. Originally, I sold graphic design services, and I've been doing that since I was like 12, 13 years old. I was selling nightclub advertisement designs, business card designs, and so forth. And back then, I was selling this locally to like my local radio stations, party promoters, and so forth. Eventually, I got into MySpace, started marketing myself there. I was receiving money via Western Union. PayPal was just becoming more of a common thing at that time. And that's kind of how I got started into the graphic design world. And I felt like I didn't just always want to stick to just having a graphic design service because this takes a lot more time. Eventually, I got into the e-commerce side, got into t-shirts. I did a whole bunch of other things. Before then, I got into reselling, videography, a lot of different things within the creative space. But eventually, I got into the e-commerce side and I got into t-shirts, right? And at that time, I'm way older now. At this time, I was about 23, 24 years old. I had my firstborn at this time. And I still didn't have a job. I had myself at this point, right? So I didn't have a choice but to figure it out. And when your back's up against the wall, you have to figure out a way to make money. So I spent $500 on a used vinyl cutter and heat press I found on Facebook Marketplace. Originally, actually, I take that back. I bought a vinyl cutter, didn't get into the heat press thing just yet. I failed at first. I bought a vinyl cutter and I made decal stickers and I was selling that on Etsy. I posted on Etsy. I made probably like 2 or 3 sales. It wasn't anything significant, but it was something. And it was kind of eye-opening, but I kind of beat myself up because, like most of you all who probably feel right now, in the very beginning, you have hopes of listing your first few products and making $5,000, $10,000 your first month, right? And I was the exact same way. I thought I was about to see a breakthrough, but I only saw about 3 sales. If I recall, it was probably like $80 total. It was cool. I should have appreciated it a whole lot more, but instead I started beating myself up like, dang, this isn't for me. And decals was just so difficult at that time because like when you weed the vinyl, it got stuck to each other and then you feel like you got to scrap it and start all the way over. You got to cut it again and recreate the actual decal. So that was frustrating. So I gave up on that. It was a few months later when I was actually getting to the t-shirt side. That's when I spent my last $500 on getting the heat press and having to repurchase a vinyl cutter because I sold that vinyl cutter not knowing you could still use a vinyl cutter to also make t-shirts. So, at that point I already had one failed journey with the vinyl cutter, but I decided to hop back into it and I actually got back on Etsy and I listed a back to school t-shirt. Not knowing this would take off, I just listed it. It was back to school time. Didn't do any crazy research like we do today, but it was perfect timing. I listed at the right time. The design looked great and it was also able to be personalized. And that thing took off, man. And I want to say it did a little over $10,000 this first month. You could probably find my very first YouTube video on here and I even showed the months that, it actually took off. I'm not sure if it was 10,000. I want to say it could have been $8,000 or $10,000, but it didn't start off with that number, right? It started off first day, it was like $50. I'm like, oh, cool. Second day, $100. Third day, it's going on to a few $100. I'm like, man, what's going on? So at this point right here, I did not know about distributors. I didn't know about wholesalers. I didn't know about any of those things. I didn't know you could buy blanks from places like Alpha Broder, SS Activewear, all those wholesale t-shirt places. What I did was went to Walmart and purchased a t-shirt as soon as the order came in. So I was creating the actual order on demand. So as soon as an order came in, I had the products listed for sale, red, navy, gray, whatever color it was, with the actual back to school design t-shirt on it, mocked up. When they purchase it, they type in the information that they actually wanted for it. So whenever they actually purchased it, I saw it was a navy size large. I went to Walmart. I bought a navy size large. It was like $5, $6 at the time. Brought it home, put the decal on it. That's probably about an extra $1 or so. And then I made another mistake, which is purchasing priority labels at that time. And I could have purchased first class labels, which was like a $3, $4 difference right there. But the t-shirt was selling for $20, $25 at that time. So it was amazing. So that right there was my first breakthrough, but I made a lot of mistakes. So a few months go by, I'm still actually growing and I start to really see the mistakes that I'm actually making and try to find ways to make it better. But I didn't really have the answers just yet because at that time I was trying different things. I got into direct to garment. I got into screen printing. I thought those things were the answers. Right? I thought if I bought my own direct-to-garment printer, I could, print one-off orders really quickly. But man, those things are slow, especially the ones that's under $20,000. Even the ones that cost like 30 grand is like still fairly slow. Or at the least, it's not quick enough to keep up with the demand that you need. And then I quickly found out about screen printing, which you can print a lot of t-shirts at once, right? But I didn't know it was a lot of like a single design. I thought it was going to be easy for me to switch screens, hop into a different one real quick, print this one and so forth. That one probably could have worked. I just got frustrated with the learning curve of actually screen printing, but it was an awesome learning curve. It taught me a lot. And then eventually I found out about screen printed transfers. That right there was a game changer for me. So what we did at that time, before we really hopped into print on demand, is we would fulfill all the one-off products, the designs that were selling one-off, and then the ones that were selling really, really well, we would turn those into screen printed transfers. And that right there, that alone was a game changer. The other mistake that I made on top of everything was trying out different pieces of equipment, thinking this equipment can create this product, so it's going to help me bring in more money. And I know that's a true, real rookie, big beginner mistake. It's having the idea and the thought that is you purchasing different pieces of equipment to make different products is going to bring you more money, which is entirely not true. Sales and fulfillment are two totally different things. But in the very beginning, for some reason, we think just because we can create certain products means that we could sell it. And that's a huge mistake that you may be making right now. You're looking up how to make this and you're looking up how to make that, but you don't even know how to sell it just yet. So that's a huge thing right there. That's one of the things I transitioned into print on demand as well, because then we had the option to be able to access more products to sell. And instead we just figure out how to actually sell it first. And then if it's something that we want to bring in house, we can see what the profit margin difference would be and if it would be worthwhile. And everything that I'm telling you, although this is years old, it's literally still the same. Nothing has changed. A lot of things in the t-shirt industry remains the same. The main formats of printing still the same. Screen printing, direct to garment, now also direct to film, direct to transfers, whatever you want to call it, dye sublimation, embroidery. All the standards are practically still the same. It's just kind of how you plan and vision to actually use it to leverage it the best format and way for your actual sales. And whenever you come into this game, it's going to be really easy for you to hop online and feel like everyone is doing this. So you're not going to be able to see a piece of the pie, which is entirely not true. You need to have that abundant mindset where you feel like you can outshine the competition. Technically, this is a saturated space, but a lot of people don't understand that saturation is actually can be a good thing to your advantage if you know what you're doing and you know how to outshine the competition, depending on what platform you are actually selling on. And when you do things correctly, that means you can get a larger piece of the actual pie because you are doing things properly to be able to capture those sales. And everything's going to be hard in the beginning, but it's also just as hard to not do it. It's hard to make money. It's even harder to be broke. So really choose which direction you want to go and just make sure you commit. When I did this, I didn't have a choice. My kids needed me to be able to eat. It's okay if I'm starving, but it's not okay if the ones that depend on you is starving because you're unable to sacrifice a few hours into more education, to more implementation. These things took time for me and I'm still nowhere where I want to be. Just because that true entrepreneur in you, I know you're always going to want more, and that's okay. Because in the very beginning, I used to beat myself up over a few sales. Like I'm not at $5,000 a month yet. I'm not $10,000 a month yet. I went from 0 to 10,000 to $100,000 a month, but it didn't happen overnight. It happened through the entire learning curve and understanding which parts were my strengths and which parts were my weaknesses, realizing that I can't do everything. When you purchase new pieces of equipment, you will realize whenever you start doing fulfillment, you may bring in a larger profit margin, but you're not going to bring in more sales because this takes up more of your time. You can always focus on sales and let someone else do your fulfillment for you, even if you're bringing in less of a margin, because now you have time to focus on more sales, and sales cures everything. Because when you actually have money coming in, banks will be more happy to give you loans. Credit cards are more likely to give you increases. Now you have the option and the ability to actually spend more money in places where you want to spend it so that you can increase margins where you want the margins increased. It doesn't matter if you make less money and a higher profit margin, because in the beginning, this is not going to work for you. And those are some of the things that I really wish I knew when I first got started. And if I had to start all the way over, honestly, for myself, I'm happy it went the way it did because it was a learning curve and I did learn along those processes. But if I was able to watch this video and truly understood what I was saying as I'm watching this exact video right now, then that would have saved me a whole lot of time and a whole lot of money. The biggest thing I can say is just don't beat yourself up so much, because only time will tell as long as you commit to it. You don't have to be the best at what you do. You just have to do it to your best ability. If this video helped you out, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, leave me a comment down below. I'll see you on the next one.